in North Carolina. And when COVID hit and I didn't have
Can
my
you, sorry, Ashley, just give me 1 minute because the YouTube video is still
Yeah,
loading. Just
sure.
1 second, so we don't cut your presentation in half.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, go.
So when COVID hit and I didn't have access to my workbooks and I couldn't do labs anymore, I couldn't hand out materials, I turned to Seneca and to what I call Game Show Classroom, where I was able to implement these different websites that introduce competition to students and are engaging, and they love, you know, competing against one another and winning and the extra credit or prizes that they get from it. I polled them last week in a Google form, and these were the results. You can see that there's a clear winner there, and I'm going to talk about each one of those individually. Quizlet, a lot of people are familiar with this one, but may not know all of its features. A lot of students like to create flashcards, and I give them the terms that they need to create those flashcards. You can review as a class or review independently. The games are really fun. And these are some of the different aspects. It's a digital flashcard creator. It replaced the need for my students' binder and their glossaries, or glossary in their binder. I'm pretty satisfied with the free version. I don't buy it, although you can't see your students in classes, you can't see their work that they're doing. I've found that most of them are really motivated to keep up with it because of the games and because it helps them on their quiz. They can use these later on when they take a quiz. But they're really seeing the benefit now once we get into the human body and genetics and life science and stuff because of all the terms. And I asked them their opinion on Quizlet. I'm not going to read through these. I'm hoping they can share the presentations with you guys later. But these are the students' takes on Quizlet. Quizzes is another platform that I've used. I use these for remote learning. I'm doing one tomorrow because that's when we have teacher planning day. And I assign these to students to do on their own. And I actually get more of these returned to me than other assignments that I've given on remote days. They seem to really enjoy them. These are, like I said, awesome for independent review, and you can give them multiple attempts at trying it. They get access to the questions and the correct answers so that they can study. I love the data that Quizzes gives back to you. It's very informative about how much time they spent and what they got wrong and right. And parents can also sign up to see their scores, which is cool, so that you have that parent-teacher collaboration. And the catch is that it can only stay live for 2 weeks. So once you assign something, they only have access to it for 2 weeks. I got more quotes from them on that. And GimKit is their favorite. They are obsessed with GimKit. Every day they come in, they're like, are we doing a GimKit today? Is today GimKit day? So the awesomeness behind GimKit is that they have multiple different games that you can choose from. By far, they love Infinity Mode the most. Boss Battle was not a hit with me or the students. It was not good. But I would recommend any of the other ones. But they earn cash that they can spend to benefit them or to do what I call evil things to other people, like taking away points or reducing the amount of points that they get per question. They can hide their screens from that person so that they can't answer questions temporarily, and then they come back into it, and so they're motivated to really speed up and get those questions answered. But yeah, students love this, and I opted to actually pay for the paid version, which is $10 a month, and I have students begging to do it. I have students that disappeared when we went remote, and now they're coming back, and they are just all about it. I usually post a poll ahead of time and let them vote on which game they want to play, which gives them a lot of buy-in. The catch is that I think their organization of their report section needs better work. It's not the best kind of data, and their free trial only lasts for 30 days, and then you're reduced to only 5 players at a time. This is what they said about GimKit. And lastly, what brought us all here is Seneca. And how do I use this in my classroom? I introduce topics with this. The sessions are really short, so it's like an appetizer, gives them a little teaser of the unit, shows them some of the vocab words they should be ready for. And I average the sessions together for their grade. So if I assign like 3 sessions, I average those together. I allow them to repeat any session and take their highest grade. And this is just my typical unit plan, how I've organized this during remote learning. And that is Game Show Classroom.
Hi, thank you, Ashley. That was
Welcome.
really nice, really well presented, and exactly 5 minutes. So thank you for that.
Yes.
It was really great. We already have a few questions in the chat, but we're gonna wait until everybody else has presented before we ask you those. But well done, that was great. Now we're going for Alice. Alice, are you there? Yeah. Can't hear you. Are you saying anything?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hi. I'm Alice Wagner, special ed teacher at Pomona Middle School. I teach 8th grade, and I'll go through this a little bit later. I'm just going to talk about how I plan for the students' needs. And this year I ended up with some very low readers, and 2 of them are non-readers. Our school is a hybrid. We have remote in person. We have 3 cohorts, A, B, and C. But in the special ed classrooms, all the students are welcome to come in. However, out of the 7 students that I have, only 1, sometimes 2 students come in. So my goal is to keep the attendance rate up. We have a very low attendance rate in our district. So how do I keep that up at 79 to 90% is where I am right now. And I had to look at my students. So first thing I did was I looked at their reading levels. Where do they stand? An 8th grade reader is below basic is 0 to 599. And then a basic reader is 600 to 899. My students are in the 2nd grade reading level. If not, 2 of them are non-readers. So they fall in the below basic 2nd graders. And then I have a few, 4 of them who are 250 to 499 reading on the 3rd grade level. So I was challenged. So I had to figure out, how am I going to give them the textbook and the information and tests in order for them to read it and understand it and grasp the concepts. So again, like I said, I have period 1, their reading lexile level is 250 to 375, same group of students. Period 2, I have a social studies group for 15 to 1. Their reading lexile is a little bit higher, 375 to 650. And period 6, 375 to 850. Their reading skills are usually much better. So most of the students that I have in my 12 to 1 class are ENL learners. So I have an ENL teacher with me, and I also have a teacher assistant with me as well. So they need to, their English language acquisition is very challenging. And what do I have to do to find instructional strategies to help those students? I usually use this standard. I want to focus on textual evidence of science or social studies, depending on what I'm doing, by using text, charts, graphs, and diagrams. And this is the science standard. And I do a lot of that because I want them to read and write. I need them to be able to do that. So what tools do I use? I use the Read to Write, which is free. You can download that on Chrome. Kami is free for 60 days, but then I ended up using that a lot. So I paid $99. I use Kid Britannica. I paid $75 for that. That was all year. And I use that for vocabulary. Before every unit, we do vocabulary, we do images, and this provides that with us. I also use screencasts, is where you can read the assignment for the students, and then it's a visual, they can watch you read. And then speech to text. The 2 non-readers also cannot write, so they can say what they want to write, and they can complete an assignment using speech to text. You can get all those on Chrome. So one of the strategies that I use that I want the children to really, really focus on is read, stop, and think. I teach them from the very beginning, what is the question asking? When they read a passage, what is the title telling us? Let's look back at the test, ask a question. In this particular special ed setting that we have, they will not ask questions, especially if they're, at home or they can't see the other students. I do find that we have less behavior problems with online learning. That has been a really kind of for me, a nice treat, because they're with their families, and they're just more focused on learning and paying attention. So back to what read, stop, and think is. It's an active reading strategy. Read small chunks and then stop and ask a question. Think about what you've just read. Go back to the text and look back to see what we read and how it connects to the question being asked. And I use Seneca Learning as a whole group. I feel that Seneca Learning is exactly what we do here. There's 3 slides, and then we read those 3 slides. There's a question, but we can go back to, let's go back to slide 1. Let's go back to slide 2. Where is the information that we need? So I find Seneca Learning to be very helpful too. However, the reading level is way too high for my students, so that's why we do it as a whole group activity. I read it, or we use the read to text tool, and then they answer the question. So real quick, when I'm teaching, I try to mix it up a little bit. So I use Google textbooks, and then I reinforce the learning with Seneca Learning, Edpuzzle, Mayan, Kahoots, NerdPot, and Build the Science Guy. How am I doing on time?
I think that's time now.
Okay, so I'll be done there. So, but that's how I use. I just wanted to really show real quick the Seneca Learning. Okay, so there just has 3 slides, and then it gives you questions.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done.
That's brilliant. No, thank you so much. If you have more to share, you can share it to me, and then I'll send it to people. So just so we can keep the schedule. But that was great, really great. Lots of good tools to use. So now we're going for Greg. Greg, there, could you stop sharing, Alice? But again, great job. That was a really nice presentation. Yeah, that's Greg.
Okay, so my name's Greg Duffy. I'm assistant head teacher and STEM ambassador at Alistair Woodland School in Derby. And I'd like to share a transition project that we've developed called To the Moon. And it aims to provide engaging transition activities, reduce anxiety during transition, engage parents as the primary educators, and enable successful transition, or at least be a part of that process. So in the UK, and it's amazing that we've got people on both sides of the pond here today. I think that's brilliant. But I know in the UK, one of the main transitions that we concentrate on is between year 6 and 7. That's when they move from primary to secondary school. So in the US, I think that's 5th to 6th grade. I know that transition is important in the US as well. And it seems to me from what I've read that it's middle school to high school that's a critical one, from 8th to 9th grade. So I hope this is useful, in as much as transition is important to us wherever we are. So I hope there's something that everybody can take from it. So the To the Moon project asks students to prepare for transition, imagining that they're an astronaut preparing for a space mission. It's a bit scary, there's lots of unknowns, but it's also an exciting time and there's a world of opportunity waiting for them. So it asks students to recognise their concerns, but also look forward in hope at what may lie ahead and some of the good things that lie ahead for them. Now, in the project, it assigns roles. So what we're doing here is getting the students to see their responsibility as trainee astronauts, and also for the parents to be involved in what's called a CAPCOM. So in the Apollo era space missions, the CAPCOM communicated instructions to the astronauts and helped them complete their tasks. And so we're trying to get parents to start taking on that role as being active in the education of their children. So a little bit of parental engagement there. The activities that they get involved in are wide-ranging, and the idea is that they will suit their circumstances, ability, interests, and available resources. And that was particularly important during the lockdown in 2020, which is where most students were creating these projects. And as you'll see for some of these examples, they were allowed to choose and pick things that suited their skills. So the drawing here that you can see of the astronaut was a student who wasn't really into space as a topic, but loved drawing. And so she used her time to create that. And we had quite a lot of edible art, interestingly, which I wasn't expecting. So you can see here a creation that the student said was fun to make and delicious to destroy. So some great examples of the sort of things that they created. All of those they were able to upload those to the Edmodo classroom platform. It's a free resource. Parents also have an app so they can see the students' work as it appears, and staff in the secondary school, including myself, can give them feedback. And the students said that was a big part of reducing anxiety for them, in that when they couldn't come in for transition activities, they could engage positively with staff. This was originally designed as a project just within the city of Derby in UK, but we'd be absolutely delighted if it could be shared further and be of use beyond Derby and beyond the UK. So the link that you've been sent includes editable resources, because I'm aware that while this works for us at Woodlands, your situation might be different, and you need to be able to adapt it to your students and what your students need in that cohort. And that includes complete instructions on how to implement it, and in-school activities. There's about 10 hours of transition activities in school that are part of the free resource. And this rocket launching, which was the culmination of the project. So the students, this was them being launched into their secondary school careers, if you like, and that proved very popular with the students. It's surprisingly easy and affordable to set up. In terms of impact, students felt To the Moon was a big part of what supported them, but not on its own. And in contact with the tutors was also very important. And what this chart doesn't show is the overlap here, that actually students got the most value when the To the Moon project came back into school and also involved their tutors. And you can see that there's a variety of things that help different students. So that in a 5 minutes is an overview of the project. You can get it all at the link for absolutely free. And any questions or suggestions or support that you might want in running that, I'd only be too happy to help. There's the Twitter link there, and coming soon this year, we're looking at how we can get encoding, storage and retrieval introduced to students and parents as part of the To the Moon project as it goes forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. That was really cool. Really nice idea. Thank you for sharing it with us. And surely we're going to have some American teachers as well exploring that soon. Brilliant. Thank you. So next one up is Jessie.
All right. So my name is Jesse Newcomer. I'm from Montgomery, Pennsylvania, which is just central Pennsylvania. And oftentimes when I'm talking to fellow teachers in my district, I often see that they are asking, what can they do to better, to improve their teaching? And so I think one of the best things is trying to find some good reinforcement tools, which, of course, Seneca has sort of been like a godsend as far as a reinforcement tool with my students in US history for my 8th graders. And, oftentimes when I go home, I often think, could I have done a better job? How could I have changed my lesson plan that maybe have reached some of the kids that maybe aren't interested in history or social studies as a broad topic? And, of course, there is a solution. And These are the four big programs, that I like to use with social studies. Get More Math, I don't use so much in my classroom, but my colleague does. And oftentimes we're teaching very close, within just down the hallway. And so with Seneca, I thought that is an awesome overview of just about every subject that I could find that's in our district for the high school and for the middle school. Seneca brings so much really excitement. I mean, the kids really love working in Seneca. They love a program that really doesn't dock them points. It doesn't really there's a lot of programs out there that if a student gets something wrong, they have to do like 4 or 5 problems to make up for that one that they got wrong. And so Seneca doesn't really do that, which I think is more of a positive way of teaching the kids. And so while I'm teaching the content every day by PowerPoint or by a game or by a lesson, however I'm teaching it, it's great to have Seneca in the background that they also have to get those units done, at a time period that's following along with my lesson plans. And so normally a unit might be 3 or 4 weeks for me. And so they have maybe 15 sections of Seneca that they can run through in that amount of time in 3 or 4 weeks. And I love that it gives the time limit. This section should take, 35, 40 minutes. And that's just great to show the kids that it's like, this isn't like a program that's going to take you hours to do when you get home tonight. Another one I like to use is Online Cetera. So I do teach geography for 7th grade. My favorite topic, favorite subject. The kids really have a lot of fun with Online Cetera. Get More Math, which is a good program for students to get math goals and to achieve those. And then, of course, quizzes for some sort of a way of testing them. I often use it as a game. And so with Seneca, very easy steps. You just run in, grab an account, make an account, create a class, and then create your assignments. And really, you're just pushing on the categories that you want to teach that week or that you want them to know for that week. You assign the students to that specific class, and then you just basically watch them learn. And they're reading those sections. I just pulled up some of my data. This is just a portion of how many students of mine that are actually using Seneca. But you can see there, there might be 3 or 4 questions per section, and then they get, they're graded upon that. And then I can just go in real quick, see how long the students have been working on it. The student wasn't quite done yet, but this one was working on it for 40 minutes. Well, this one got done in 19 minutes. That one got done in 9 minutes. That's awesome. So, and then here, a bunch of the, these are the science ones, the topics that you can use for middle school or for high school. Online Cetera, love this website just to show the students about geography, the importance of geography. I decided to go ahead and just use South Asia. And so if you tap on here 3 times, so there's 8 countries. And if you tap on these 3 times and you get it wrong 3 times, your country becomes red and it tells you the answer. So if you're going through them and you're citing them and you only get, maybe, you just click it once and it's the wrong one, and you go down here and you click the right one, it just becomes a light yellow. And then if you click it twice wrong, it becomes this dark yellow. And so then it gives you a percentage of how well you have done with your 8 countries. And then you can press reset and you can go back and study them all over again. And so I like to take each section of the world, South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and give it about a week. So I do world geography for 7th grade. And that's roughly all I can give with just about 200 countries in the world. And so it's great to break it down for the students, and they get to do the capitals and the country names. Get More Math, you just create a class, add your students, assign the correct units. It gives you check marks. It allows you to check through to see what the right answers are. And of course, you can assign specific assignments for those classes. Quizzes, I really love just because you can add your own questions, or you can teleport questions from other people's quizzes, which is super helpful. You can just type in, the election of 1968, and all of a sudden you're getting a bunch of questions about Richard Nixon. And so it's really cool to be able to see what other people put on there for their quizzes. And you can add pictures and you can add logos and all sorts of awesome things. And the students really like the quizzes music. while it's going in the background, you just see their heads bobbing up and down and they're shaking and they're, it's kind of the middle school vibe. But you just send the code, you finish your quiz, you send the code out to your students and you allow them to either work on it at home or you can do it in class. And so here's just like a couple of my quizzes, a screenshot, the Restless 60s, Vietnam War. Here's my classes over here that I teach. And so it's just a really good tool to have. Of course, we are taking questions at the end, but that pretty much sums up the 4 websites that I wanted to go over with everybody for reinforcement.
Super. Thank you so much, Jesse. That was also very useful, I'm sure, for everybody watching this. That's great. So next one is Sha. Are you there?
Okay, yes, I'm here. And now I'm going to present. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, present. I can't.
Maybe share screen. I think it's called share screen.
Yeah, but I can't see the share screen right now. I don't know why.
Bottom, where you have participants, polls, reactions.
Oh yeah, share screen. Okay, yeah. Now I can see it.
Good.
Yeah. So can you see? Everybody can?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay. Thanks very much.
No problem.
And yeah, the topic I would like to share is use Google in remote learning because, you know that since the lockdown, the live lesson is getting more and more popular. And before, and Google, I think it's actually a very strong platform, and it's just waiting for us to find more functions in it. And before the lockdown, my mentor told me, okay, Gmail and the Google Drive maybe, and it's the top 2 apps in Google you need to get familiar with because it's you need to contact the colleges every day, and for Google Drive you have to store your drive in it. But for Google Meeting, we know, and it's getting more popular since the lockdown because we have to use it as a live lesson for the students. But I think we should explore more functions about Google Meeting. And for example, the break the room, because sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. And I'm a language teacher, I think. So the practice, speaking practice is very important. So have if the students can be break up into a small group and to have a live conversation with their partner, I think this is very important. And the Google Meet and provide this kind of function as well, I think. And another one is the poll, and the teachers can set the questions to the students, and the students can choose the different activities. For example, just as I think they mentioned, the teachers noticed a lot of games. So the teachers can assign a poll to let the students vote which one was the best. And after it, and the more functions I found is about for example, the Google Slide and the Jamboard. And the Google Form, for example, you can use Google Form to assign your homework, and it will save the teacher's time and energy if you can do it properly. And of course, Google Form cannot only use to assign homework, but I think you can use it in the live lesson as well. For example, to assign the listening. Yeah, listening practice or writing practice, something like that. And later I will show you the real the work we do. So maybe you can get some ideas. The last one is the Google site I would like to share with all of you. And I think if you can master this kind of skill, you can create your own website. For example, you can put a lot of activities in different pages, and the students can can see videos and can read the instructions about a project, and can give their feedbacks to the teachers. And then next one, for example, I would like to show you the sorry about the link. Can you see my screen on Jamboard?
No.
No, sorry. Okay, maybe I needed to share another one. Yeah, this one. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
Can you see this? Yeah. So this is a very simple game. It's a word search because we found that the English students are very fun, very crazy about the word search. So we set this one on Jamboard. These are the students' marks. They are very engaged in this kind of game because it's a very strong function that the students can draw some lines on it. So the engagement, so the participate of the students is very much. So the students can upload the photos here and can do the games here, and the teachers at the same time could monitor whether the students are engaged in this part. I think it's very good to interactive with the students because at my school, the students sometimes you don't know what they are doing. And so you with this one, and I think you can have some fun with them. At the same time, you can interactive with them. Okay, another is about the Google form. I would like to share. So can you see?
Yes.
Yeah, can you see? Okay. And so for this one, I think Google Form is very, very good. So this one is for the it's for the students, yeah, listening. So on the one website, the teachers could play the audio, and at the same time, the students could submit their listening. Answers at the same time, and based on the strong function of forms, and the students can immediately see the results of the students and see which one and they're doing their job or not. And the last thing I would like to share is the Google site.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if we have time.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
and that's
10 seconds.
Okay, just I think I already have shared my ideas about the site. Maybe if you are very interested about it, and I think I can tap in the website in the chat box so people can have a look at. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be brilliant. So you made the website yourself?
Yes, just based on Google. Yeah, okay, it's totally free.
Yeah, that sounds great. So yeah, please share that on the chat. I'm sure people will appreciate that. Sorry about that. It's just that we
that's all right.
Carry on. But that was a great presentation, Sha. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So next one up is Silvia.
I think Sha needs to stop sharing her screen before I can share my screen.
Yeah, okay. I have to stop.
Yeah. It should be on the same place where you started.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. So just to introduce myself, I'm Silvia Bastow. I'm the head of languages at Archwood Academy in Telford in England, in the UK. I'm also specialist lead in education, research lead and examiner. You can find me on the Twitter, and this is Silvia4, and I also have a blog where you can find pretty much all of the resources I will be showing you. My presentation is about retrieval practice and the problems we have been encountering in languages. Now, it is fair to say in languages we have always retrieved or recalled in some kind of a form. In the past, the recall for us would be vocabulary tests or the usual start activity where there would be translation tested, but it would be a testing strategy, not a learning strategy. You know, language being cumulative, you know, one lesson really follows on the other lessons. So it is very essential that students learn the vocabulary. With the technique of testing, what we have noticed is that our students were doing pretty well and the results were really good in the end of unit exams because the knowledge was still fresh in the memory and they could access it quite easily. But when it came to the end of a year exam or end of course exam, the results were not so great, and we had to, students forgotten quite a lot of knowledge and we had to almost reteach. So last year during the lockdown, I have spent a lot of time researching retrieval practice. I have read lots of books, one of them being Patrice's book on powerful teaching, lots of blogs, lots of websites. And I have spent my summer pretty much planning and implementing retrieval practice into our curriculum and into our lessons, making sure that topics were spaced, interleaved, and that we were providing feedback where and as it was necessary. So from September, these were all in our lessons embedded. I had to explain to my colleagues and to my students as well what retrieval practice is, because everybody is very much geared to, knowing what is my mark, what is my grade. So it was explaining to them that it is not about, what you score. It's about your learning, what you know, what you have forgotten, and closing the gaps. These are some examples of the retrieval practice templates that we are using. Many of them have been shared by other colleagues, and they are from different subjects, and I have adapted them to language teaching specifically. Many were collated by learning linguists. Some of these we're using for homework retrieval, so that would be the web-based ones, like the one you can see at the very top on the left. It's by the website called Flippity. Many of them work on spreadsheets based. So if you have spreadsheets already, you've got a bank of your questions, it is just copy and paste job. Or if you have Quizlet, you can import them from Quizlet directly, and the Flippity will generate a flashcards for you based on what you import. They can be shuffled up, and there is a lot of different activities you can do as well. Now, as you can see, I like to vary the diet. I like to keep my students not bored, but also in languages, we have to cover 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So it is important that we test different type of knowledge. So it's not just all about vocabulary. Some of them are extended answers. Some of them are grammar processes and concepts. So like the one here, which is 5 a day, there are basically 5 tasks. One would be grammar based, conjugate the verb. You might have a list. You might have to find out the odd one out, correct the sentence because there is a mistake, or translate a sentence. So these are various activities you could use. Now, the cops and robbers is similar, I suppose, to Patrice's brain dumps, one where the students write what they remember, and then they go around the classroom trying to steal knowledge from other friends and obviously, add it to their. So these are some of them. They are on my blog on the resource page. They are all completely free. So if you wish, you can download them and you can use them, adapt them to you. I would also like to mention this one, which you can see these 4 here. They are based on retrieval roulette, which is also spreadsheet based. And the spreadsheet was designed by English teacher Adam Boxer. And then the games you can see here, like Connect 4, Blockbuster, and Knots and Crosses, were then adapted by history teacher, Mr. Also History, who's also English teacher. And the templates you can see were then later on adapted by Julia Morris. I have just put my own questions and answers in it, and they have a bit of the cultural background as well to cover the cultural capital. But what's beautiful about this is the spreadsheet has got a formula. So once you have put your data in, you can, as I said, import it from Quizlet, or if you are in a department like me, where we share our workload, somebody chooses and does one topic, another colleague does another topic, and we just join it together to make our life easier. It is a bit of work to start with, but you can use it every year. Once you click on the F9 button, it will generate a new quiz every time you press it. You can choose which cells you want to test, so which topics, it will interleave it, and it will generate random quizzes. You can have 8, you can have 10, or you can have 5, and it gives you instant answers. So it's very, very quick. The one I have been using a lot, and I don't know whether you know about that one during the remote teaching, is this one here. It is called Spiral AC. It is excellent website because you as a teacher can create a free account, so you don't pay anything for it. You create your own classroom. Once you created your classroom, you're going to get a code, and that code is the same every time you log into Spiral AC. You share that code to your students, and that's how they join the classroom. They don't need logins, they don't need any accounts. So once you have shared your code, there are 4 modes you can use. I mostly use the quick firelight, which is 0 prep, which is brilliant for us teachers because we don't have a lot of time. All you do once students are there, you pose your questions. So you can ask whatever you want to ask, and students write their answers. Now, the beauty of it is that the answers are hidden. Okay, answers are hidden, the student names are hidden. Here at the bottom, this yellow line is showing you how the answers are coming. Once they are there, you click on reveal, and then you will see the answers there. You can reveal the names, and you will see the students' names. Once you have marked one of them as correct, it will automatically mark all of them correct for you. So you don't have to click on every single one. If it is wrong, you can return it back to the student for editing, and they will edit it, and you can see that the edit is happening live. The beauty of it is, at the end, it will generate a report to you. Report for your class, so you can see the questions they struggled with, the questions they mastered, but also report for individual students, so you can see individual students also who could answer the question and who couldn't. So at the end of your session, you don't have to worry about gathering any kind of data to have a look how your class did. It does it all for you. On my blog, there is a quick tutorial as well, about 8 minutes, where you will see all the view of the student as well. So here you can see some websites that are used for remote retrieval, Carousel Learning, Quizlet, Quizzes, Learning Apps, WordWall, and then you have also credits of any ideas I've got from other people and I took on board. So I think that's from me. If you have any questions, as I said, you can contact me either on the Twitter or on my blog page. I think
That's amazing. That was very good, and I really like the last two. That sounded like a really great lifesaver. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our last speaker of short speaker is Yvette. Yvette, are you there?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Let's do this. Sorry, I'm just putting my PowerPoint on. Apologies.
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, probably a pop. Okay, hello everybody. Good afternoon, evening, night, and even morning, because we've got a global audience. I'm in London, and I'm in the UK like Silvia and Greg, and it's actually after midnight now. So hello to everybody. My name's Yvette, and I run a consultancy called More Curricula. And the ethos behind the consultancy is all about teaching children how to learn. I'm actually a teacher, but I stopped teaching a couple of years ago, but I first started teaching back in 1997. Now, my presentation is going to be about the art of note-taking, and this builds on the whole ethos of learning to learn. So today we're going to talk about 4 things. Is there an art to note-taking? What's the research saying about it? And we can look at 2 strategies. So hopefully I will stick within the 5 minutes, or I might go a minute over. So the big question is there an art to note-taking? And there's a very, very simple answer to that: no. The research out there is divided. So you have some research saying that taking notes by hand is good, and others saying taking notes using a laptop is good. So we've actually got a bit of disagreement. Now, the main research that you will see is by somebody called, or people called, Muller and Oppenheimer. And that was done in 2014, and they worked with university students. And what they found is the university students that took notes by hand, opposed to those who took it by laptop, they did better when they gave them an assessment to do. So what they found is that they got a higher score and they had a better understanding of concepts. Now, the problem is, all the research that we've got now doesn't support these findings. So in fact, some of the experiments done by Muller and Oppenheimer found that the students who took their notes by hand, although they did well with recall, they didn't do as well when they were recalling facts. And they also found that rereading notes helped students who took their notes by hand, because they did better when they were tested factually, both conceptually. Now, there's other research out there, and the other research has found that students who take notes using a laptop do better when they answer factual questions. And there's also even more research, which is more recent, that has found that when tests are done with school children, that who take their notes by hand, that they actually do well conceptually, but not recalling facts. So it's really, really confusing what we have. So let's try and agree what the research is saying. The general consensus is, if you take notes by hand, there's a better understanding of concepts and visual information. And the reason being, and I'm going to pinch a really good explanation, which I found on a YouTube channel by Thomas Franks. Now, when a student is typing and they're using a laptop to take notes, their main concern is to try and copy what the teacher or lecturer is saying. So they're trying to copy word for word as quickly as they can. And what that means is they can't take in the meaning and the syntax. So the syntax are the letters and sounds that a word makes. So they can't do both. So what happens is they focus on the syntax. So they are focusing on the letters, sounds, the letters and the sounds that the word makes rather than the meaning. Now, on the other hand, when you're taking notes by hand, there's a totally different process. And because you cannot write as fast as someone who's typing, you have to decide what you're going to write down. So you then decide what you're going to write down and you think about summarizing, paraphrasing, so it makes sense to you. So in my opinion, if you are taking notes using a laptop, there's a greater opportunity for you to acquire factual information opposed to conceptual information. And if you're taking notes by hand, there's a greater opportunity for you to acquire notes that gives you conceptual knowledge. That's just my opinion. Okay, other elements that researchers agree on between learning and note-taking is if you have opportunities to reread your notes, that can help with learning. Distractions are a no-no for both taking notes by hand or laptop. But I would say that if you are taking notes using a laptop, there are more opportunities for you to be distracted because there's a temptation to browse the internet, check your email, etc. And another thing is the note-taking strategy that you use. So that can help in terms of learning. So I'm going to show you two strategies which you can use with children of any age that work. And the research out there shows that it works. So the first one, which some of you are already familiar with, is the Cornell note-taking system. And your page is divided into three areas. So the first area is the main note-taking area. And during a lesson or a lecture, you would record the main points of that lesson or lecture. After the lesson had finished, you then would move to the left of your screen, and we've got a column called the Q column. And what you would do is record questions or prompts about the notes that you've taken. So the questions would be helping you consolidate knowledge to gain understanding and also to connect learning with prior learning. So it's this sort of relationship and connecting learning. Once that's done, you would complete the summaries section, and that's 1 or 2 sentences that summarizes the main argument of the lesson. Now, the great thing about this is not only does it help organize your notes, which helps with this conceptual understanding, it also brings a bit of retrieval practice in. So the Q column, the questions where you're checking what you know, and you're not, you're just testing yourself in an informal environment, that's retrieval practice. Now the second strategy is visual note taking. And that's when you have a graphic or an image with some text when you take your notes. So examples are mind maps, concept maps, etc. And the reason why this is very effective is because it supports dual coding. And I think, sorry, someone's trying to come in, let me put the person in. Okay, so I think most people are aware of what dual coding is because it's one of the buzzwords that we've had for the last couple of years in teaching. But what it is your brain, when it encodes or takes information in, it can do it in 2 ways. It can do it verbally, so anything that we're listening to, and visually, so anything that we see. So if you are taking notes visually, where you've got diagrams and text, it enables your brain to take information in twice. Now, the great thing about the information you're taking in, they're both independent, but once they go and they're encoded in your brain, they're connected. And that's why I've got the associative connection. Now, the great thing about this is not only are you taking information in twice, you've also got more chance of remembering it. So when you're trying to retrieve it or recall it or take it out of your memory, if you can't remember what you heard, then your brain will try and remember what it saw. So it's a great way to support learning. So references on my slide, these are the references I referred to with the research, and I hope you found it interesting, and thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. That was definitely very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing.
So let's unshare. Stop sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
we are running a little bit late, so we're gonna switch the order. So we're gonna go first to Patrice's presentation, and then we're gonna do all the questions in the end, like a big panel discussion thing. Is that all right? I'm sorry, it's just that we don't wanna leave people waiting for Patrice's talk much longer. So first, thank you very much for the 7 speakers before. You all did amazingly well. And to everybody else, please go on Twitter and make sure you thank those speakers. It's all in our blog, all of their handles. And please tweet about these presentations and tag them and tag us at Seneca_K12 and use hashtag SenecaPD to talk about these presentations on Twitter as well. And just before Patrice starts, there is a discount, 30% off on a parent's guide to powerful teaching. As soon as she finishes presenting, I will give you a secret word, and then all you have to do is email me with that word, and I will share the discount code with you. Okay, so Patrice, yeah, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
thank you
brilliant.
so much. I know some of you, it's very late, so thank you so much. And to the wonderful presenters already, oh my goodness, we're just in sync. Great job. So tonight I'm going to be talking to you about powerful teaching for home and school. You should have somewhere a retrieval card. I practice what I preach, so there'll be times I'm going to pause and have you stop and jot a note. So make sure you have this handy. I'm going to be talking about the teaching triangle tonight, which to me is a very important part. It includes the student, the teacher, and the parent. And when I say parent tonight, it could be carer, grandparent, but it's connecting learning at home, because with this triangle, learning is powerful. What is powerful teaching? Powerful teaching takes the latest in what we now know about how people learn, based in rigorous research. And with that takes evidence-gathered strategies that we know, due to rigorous research, boosts learning and helps students retain that knowledge. We work hard as teachers. That's what we want. There is valuable research on the science of learning out there, sitting behind lock and key until now. It used to be we would have to go into textbooks or dig through journals, and there's jargon we didn't understand. Not anymore. It's here. It's accessible. Let's start. Every first day of class begins for me telling my students, I'm your teacher, and I'm going to teach you how to learn. To me, this is one of the most powerful statements that we as teachers can do for our students. Content, curriculum, of course, that's important, but my number one priority was teaching my students how to learn. So how do we learn? There are 3 steps. The first step is encoding, and that's where we get the information into our heads. And as educators, we excel. We know our curriculum, we know our class, and we know how to find that lecture, that video clip, that story, everything that we put together to put in our students' heads is encoding. Now, when you talk about learning with parents and you talk about the 3 steps and you say encoding, they might think, what's that? But they've been doing it since the child was born. We share with our children the same way teachers share. We share beauty, travel, beliefs, and values, how to get dressed. It is all this information that goes into our heads. Encoding, step 1. Step 2, storage. We've put it in there and there it is. But often that's where learning, we kind of think that's the end point, but it isn't. Dr. Pooja Agarwal, my co-author of Powerful Teaching, says, too often we focus on getting the information in. What if instead we focused on getting the information out? Step 1 was encoding, step 2, storage, step 3, retrieval. What are the 3 steps of learning? Quick, wherever you are sitting, tell me, what are they? Encoding, storage, retrieval. You just retrieved. We know through research that we can increase learning through the power tools. But what are power tools? These are research principles that work. In fact, they work so well, Pooja, Dr. Agarwal, and I named them power tools. And what are the 4 that we concentrate on? Retrieval practice, spacing, interleaving, and feedback-driven metacognition. I will focus on a couple of them tonight. Why do we love power tools? They're not a fad. How many times have you sat through professional development only to be shown the latest shiny object and it disappears? These are not fads. These are tried and true and researched. They boost long-term learning and social emotional learning. They work for most content areas and ages. There's research that goes from early childhood all the way to adults, and how all you have to do is simply make a small shift that will make a big difference. So let's talk about them. What was that first one? Retrieval. The first power tool I'm going to talk about is retrieval, and it is pulling information out. Look at these. Do you remember when we used to be able to travel and we used to be able to go to restaurants and hang out with our friends? It's kind of memories now, isn't it? But when we bring forth these memories, that's retrieval. And for the most part, we really enjoy it. So why are these the looks that we often get when we ask our students to retrieve? Why does it bring forth anxiety? There's a reason. And the reason is if retrieval is infrequent or if it is high stakes. If you teach something in January and we don't go over it again until the end of the school year, what's going to happen if they haven't been retrieving it through, it's been infrequent, and it's a high stakes exam? They're going to feel anxiety. In a study with over 1,500 high school students, they were asked, does retrieval practice make you more or less anxious for unit tests? Ponder, what do you think? Why? Because the students were ready. These were students who used retrieval and spacing and metacognition. Retrieval practice is a learning strategy, not an assessment strategy. You're still going to have your high stakes tests. You're still going to have your essays and your projects. But retrieval practice is part of the learning journey. When I asked you to think about your favorite place where you traveled or some family lore that you discuss at holidays, you're not graded on those. When we bring forth memories, it doesn't always have to be graded. Why is this important for home? Because parents sometimes think that there needs to be homework and it all needs to be graded. Helping with this teaching triangle allows for the parents to understand the science of learning and that retrieval is a learning strategy. What are retrieval guidelines? Keep it low stakes or no stakes. If you need to give grades, keep it low stakes. Ask a mix of questions, whether it be simple recall all the way to critical thinking. The more the better, and you don't have to grade these. A simple shift in what you do. When we start class and say, here's what we did yesterday, here's what we did last week, you're encoding. How to do a quick switch? What did we do yesterday? What did we do last week? Turn and talk to your neighbor. Do a quick breakout room. Come back together and you have a room rich of retrieval. Rather than as a parent saying, how was your day? Instead, what about that experiment you did in science? What did you learn from that? Where did you go in geography today? Every time we have our students or our children retrieve, we are boosting learning. And something else, just because you see something doesn't mean you know it. Do you have an Apple product? Are you aware of the Apple logo? Which one is it? There has been research done on this, and often it's difficult, even though people have seen it, to figure out which one it is. By the way, it's the middle column, the one on top. Here's another one. Think of your favorite coin. Maybe it's something you've seen hundreds or even thousands of times. If you were to draw a circle, could you sketch out that coin? Is it a person or a place? If it's a person, which way does he or she face? What are they wearing? Is there writing on the coin? Try this out sometime because it's much harder than you may think. Just because you see something doesn't mean you know it. Why is that important? Because too often, that's what we expect or profess to use for study strategies. Think of how we even say, go home and look at your notes. Reread what you've highlighted. Go ahead and look at your study guides. These are ineffective. And why? Because we're not retrieving. Why is this important for home? Because oftentimes parents are using these very strategies with their children because it's what they used. But we now know better. A couple terms I want to just talk about real quick. Working memory and long-term memory. They are located in two different parts of our brains. When we first learn something, it goes into working memory, and that's limited. In fact, we can remember about 4 to 7 new things. But our long-term memory, that's unlimited. I'll be talking about these, so I wanted to make a quick explanation. But when we get things in our working memory, when we are able to retrieve and space out information, it helps put it back into our long-term memory. And that's what we retrieve. I also like to share my responsibility diagram. As teachers, we are responsible for encoding. It's what we do. But this diagram sometimes surprises people because only a student can retrieve. So if somebody says, why can't I use Google? Because if you look at, most likely you're not going to retrieve that information. If you simply complete study guides by looking and writing down answers, you're not retrieving. If you get too much help from a friend or a parent, you're not the one retrieving. The only person who can retrieve is the student. Time to ponder. In your classroom, do you have students review or retrieve? On your retrieval card, I'm going to give you a quick 30-second stop and jot. It's not for full sentences, it's just to jot yourself a note. Go. Thank you. The first power tool we discussed was spacing. The first one was retrieval. The second one is spacing. And what is spacing but retrieval over time or teaching over time? Have you ever asked your students a question? No, it was taught last year. You know it was. Or have you ever asked your students a question and you were the one that taught it? Maybe
Patrice?
It's frozen.
Yeah, I think. Oh, okay, let's wait a few seconds. I'm sure you'll be back. Oh, I think she left the meeting entirely.
It should probably come back in.
Yeah, she'll probably come back in.
We have to do that a lot in our school.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll check my email and see if she's saying anything.
am I back on?
Oh, there she is. Yes, now you're back.
Oh my goodness, suddenly everything went dark. Okay. Well, I'm back and let me go back to presenting from this slide. Are we there?
Not yet. Can only see your camera.
Flavia, I'm so sorry.
No, it's not your fault. Somebody just said on the chat that we retrieved you.
Okay, I don't have the little button to.
Oh, because you entered again. No, you are co-host. Yeah, it should be there. Yeah. Yes, there is.
Are we there?
Yeah. Yes, perfect.
Woo! Okay, is my screen on? Can you hear me?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Oh, thank you. Well, I did not need a jolt of caffeine to get me going. I hope you did not go to sleep while this was going on. What I was talking about was looks from students you might get clueless when you bring up something that had already been taught. And that's because spiraling is not spacing. Just because something is in the curriculum does not mean it has been spaced. Spacing is a purposeful retrieval. So what should be spaced? We need to space our big ticket items. What do I mean by that? I always start with the end in mind. What's on my big exam at the end of the year? A chapter test, an essay. And those things that I know I want my students to know, that is what I space. There's also something called the forgetting curve. Forgetting is actually good for learning. And you should see the relief on my students' faces when they learn this fact. As soon as we learn something, it's going to be in our working memory and we've got it. But within an hour, we start forgetting. With spacing, it's important when we bring up new information to have students retrieve it the following day, and then a few days later, and then later. It doesn't have to take a whole period. It can be a simple, what I call, blast from the past. In fact, what were those 3 steps of learning? Encoding, storage, retrieval, a simple blast from the past. Spacing is also not cramming. I have certainly done this. You probably have too, but it's not the way to study. If you have not spaced out information, that purposeful revisiting or retrieval of information, you may have to cram the night before an exam. The good news, you'll do okay. The bad news, the information is not going to stick. Very short term. What are spacing guidelines? Always make sure you ask about past content. The more the better. And remember, forgetting is a part of learning. Why is this important to share? Because sometimes if you are spacing something out and a parent sees what their child is studying, they might think, you studied that last month. Why are you studying that again? When parents know the science of learning, they know why. The third one I'm going to talk about tonight, the third power tool, is metacognition. My definition is discriminating the known from the unknown. For example, have you ever had a student study really hard for a test? Or as a parent, have you seen your child sit at the kitchen table studying and they're so ready they know they're going to ace this test? And the test comes and they didn't do well. There's a reason for that. Too often, students tend to study what they already know. It feels good. It builds confidence. I know this, I know that. I don't know that, but I know this and I know this. We need to come up with ways that help our students define, to discriminate between what they know and what they don't know. And that's metacognition. What are guidelines? Feedback is vital. They have to know if they know it or they don't. And errors are not only okay, they are a good thing. In fact, they target what needs work and it identifies gaps and illusions in what we're learning. I'm going to talk a little bit about some strategies for your power toolbox. First of all, if you go to powerfulteaching.org/resources, there's all sorts of free templates. I don't have time to go over a lot of them today, but you can find them in Powerful Teaching. You can find them in A Parent's Guide to Powerful Teaching. There's even some more strategies in there, and through this website. But I will just go over a couple. I developed what I call the 4 steps of metacognition. Take a moment and read over them. Now let's see how it works. I switched from using flashcards to what I call retrieval cards. And I would often put a definition or a term on the card, and the students went through the 4 steps. The first one is a JOL, or making a judgment of learning. Do you know it or not? If you know it, put a star or a happy face, younger kids, or question mark if you don't. Go through them all. No books, no notes. Step 2, answer all that you know. Step 3 is the first time you open up your notes. Look up those answers, write those down, and step 4, verify that what you thought you knew, you do. Now, what's wonderful about this? Students are able to know right off the bat, did I know it or not? And they have a wonderful study tool to take home. Instead of simply always going over what they already knew, they know the area to focus. Time to ponder. How can you incorporate power tools into your teaching? Thirty seconds. Thank you. Another item. Do you discuss learning with parents? I conducted a national survey in the United States asking parents for all sorts of answers. And here's an example. I asked, what are the 2 top things that would help you with your child's learning? Parents want to know, and we have the information to help them. And why? Example for retrieval. Because we want the parents to be on the same page. We want that teaching triangle. How and when can we do it? These are times when I did it. And this guide, which you can get a discount from John Catt, the wonderful publisher, goes into so much information. For you, if you're a new teacher and you don't have time to dive into a 300-page book, this book is for you. It helps explain everything that I've been talking about and giving a lot of strategies. It's a great book to share with parents. If you are a parent, it's filled with tips for home. I'm going to quickly go over some challenges that we face. Often we face illusions of learning, an illusion of fluency. Oh, I know that. Have you ever had a student who is convinced they know the answer, but they don't? That 4 steps to metacognition helps with that, to help discriminate what we know and maybe errors in our judgment. Or the illusion of confidence. I'm going to ace that test, but we don't. What do the illusions do? They give us a disconnect with achievement. Parents, this is good for them to know. I also want to talk quickly about desirable difficulties because the power tools challenge learning. As it says in the fabulous book, Make It Stick, learning that's easy is like writing in the sand, here today and gone tomorrow. We need, kind of like Goldilocks, to make sure it's not too hard, but it's not too easy. And why do we want our parents to know this? Because if we are sending work home and it's too easy, it's not going to stick. We need, if it's too hard, we need to scaffold and help students and parents know strategies to build up to it. As Blake Harvard, at Effortful Educator, said, he called them desiring difficulties, which I think is a gem of a term. And there is so much more I would love to share with you. But as you can see, our time has run out. But help is here. Again, there's valuable research on the science of learning, but it is here and it is accessible and it is now just waiting for you. I thank you so much. I'm sorry we had a couple tech difficulties. I hope we will keep in touch and thank you. Oh, one more. Tomorrow, please get your retrieval card. Retrieve. What are some things that maybe surprised you or had impact? Complete that tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. That was amazing. Very brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. You covered lots of topics, which is really impressive for 30 minutes. So that was great. Thank you so much. We have a few questions, so I think I'm gonna alternate between questions for Patrice and questions for everybody else, just so that everybody has a chance to talk a little bit. So starting with Patrice, is there an optimum spacing or interval time between retrieval practices? So that's not too long or not too short.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of research on this. What I mentioned earlier is once you learn something, you want to retrieve it the following day. And then about 3 days later, and then about a week, there's actually kind of a formula. Doug Lemov, in his latest book, talks about the forgetting curve and has a great annotated visual. I don't have the link available, but yes, it's, if you can find it, look it up because it shows just how and when you should be doing it.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. And in terms of low stakes for grading, do you have any practical tips for how we can do that, but still be able to assess our students according to school policy or national exam policy?
Like I said, you still have your tests. You still have, your essays, your projects. Grading is still there, but using retrieval as part of your journey, those daily things. If you have to assign grades, make it low stakes. But when you teach your students how to learn, they become very invested in the process. And they see that retrieval, even when they get things wrong, they understand, oh, well, that's where I need to focus my time. So make sure, and I know we're so heavy into grades,
Yes.
but teaching that process can really help that they learn the journey of learning.
Yep, that makes sense. And I'll have a question about that later. But so Ashley, are you still there, Ashley?
I am.
Yeah, hi. So there was a question for you in terms of like a practical question. So all of those resources that you shared, did you need to get authorization from districts, from your district to use them, or is it something that any teacher can just start using without much bureaucracy?
Anybody can use. Have had some issues recently with firewalls going up and things on YouTube being blocked, but none of the ones that I shared have been blocked.
Okay, that's good to know. That's easier then. Thank you. And Alice, so you mentioned less behavior problems with remote learning. What about student participation? So some people in the chat saying that students are less engaging on remote learning. Have you seen that with your students as well?
We do have some students who are less engaging, but that's why I have to change it up all the time. So I never stick with one type of activity. I'm always mixing it up so that when they do come back, it might fit them a little better than the other one. So that's important that I do that. And I always try to make it, you know, short mini lessons, and then also keeping them engaged and actively doing something.
Yep, amazing, thank you. Okay, and Greg, so there was a practical question. So what kind of materials do you usually have to build those models that were on the pictures? And then what do you do with them afterwards? So do you just throw them away? Do you recycle them? Do you use them for the next year group?
So in the example last year in lockdown, they were all created at home. So students just used what was lying around them, really.
Okay.
So it was just what you had to hand, so that the projects were just wide ranging and they could choose what they wanted to do just to allow them to use what was available, whatever resources they had. And keeping them was when they were uploaded, I just kept photos of those, and then we showed those when the students joined us. So we sort of celebrated everything that they did, a simple drawing through to a 2-stage rocket to anything that they created. And as far as recycling goes, I hope they recycled them. I could probably add that in as something to say, you know, make sure you recycle your projects but take a photo so it stays forever.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Okay, let's go back to Patrice now. So you talked about helping kids to understand how the process works and the learning journey. Can you do that with younger children as well? Is there a way, if you're working with Key Stage 3 or Key Stage 2 here in the UK, or middle school or even elementary school in the US? Can we actually explain this to young kids? Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, Dr. Agarwal has a wonderful site called retrievalpractice.org. And at this site, she has several guides. One in particular is Retrieval for Early Childhood. So go ahead, they're free, download them. Great information, all research-based.
Yeah, sounds good. Jessie, I'll go back to you, Patrice. Jessie, so there was a practical question for you as well. Do you have to deal with any data privacy issue before starting using all of those online resources? Or is also like Ashley says, just something that you can start straight away?
Yeah, for the programs that I use, you can pretty much just go ahead and start them. I guess it's not a bad thing if you ask your district, maybe like your building principal. But for the most part, I just kind of jumped in, and really does, I guess, help a lot that my principal is very
cool,
lenient, just kind of like anything that helps the students learn, go ahead and tackle it. Like, you know, if it works, share, you know. So
yeah, nice, that's good. Sha, so we didn't have time to see your website, but somebody asked if that's something that you build or you ask your students to build their own websites. If she's still there. Hello, Sha, you there? All right. Silvia then. Silvia is still there. Hello.
Yes, I am sorry. I just realized I was muted. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So you talked about some resources that you use with the whole department. So you add something, they add something else. So the question was, how easy is it to get everybody involved? Or is there always some teacher that doesn't want to do it? And then how do you deal with them?
Well, I'm quite lucky because we are a pretty good team, because I think the philosophy we have is, why to make life harder for ourselves when we can, share the workload. So we know what we're teaching. The curriculum is the same for every teacher in the languages. So if we divide, you do topic 1, or you do a certain year group and you do another year group, as long as we have a clear plan how we want to have the resource to look, the basic form, and we follow quite closely the Conti methodology, we know what kind of activities, we have a basic templates for our PowerPoint, and that's all for the spreadsheet. Obviously, that's an easy. But I'm always been really quite lucky. I share my resources freely, never charge for anything, and I think that sets a good example as a head of department as well, because you give, and then it's kind of like embarrassing for other people than just to take and not to give, not to share. So kind of it's a bit diplomatic, I think, as well on my part.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and the last one before we get back to final questions with Patrice is for Yvette. You still there?
Still here? You still here?
Hi. What are some of the best digital tools which enable effective note taking?
Well, you can actually get lots of visual tools. So there's lots of mind mapping things. You can just use Word. The other thing you can do is you can use any Word document and just divide it up. That's what you can do as well. So the tools I've talked about, so Cornell note-taking strategy, you can actually just divide your screen up where you put your notes in, and the other things, or follow the actual structure, because with the research done by Muller and Oppenheimer, they instructed students what to take notes on. So there's, if the student knows what to take notes on when they're typing, you say, don't try to, copy word for word, just try and take the main points. And then after, when they finish, they then use questions to probe what they've done. So that can be done electronically, and you can use any tool. There's so many tools out there. To be honest, I can't name any, but there's loads that you can use for mind mapping.
Yeah, no, sounds good. Thank you. It's just being able to use Word is already very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Patrice, 2 last questions for you. Do you think, because the book is about parents, really, do you think there's any big differences in what parents think or what they expect as the kids grow up, and how teachers have to deal with that difference? So if they have a 5-year-old kid or a 15-year-old kid or 18-year-old kid, do they think differently about education?
I think so. I think parents tend to be much more hands-on the younger the child, and more hands-off the older the child. I think also parents tend to pass their own study habits onto their children. And so this is why I think it's really vital that we can share this information. I think especially now, we know parents are struggling and there is help. We know how we can simplify learning, how to concentrate on retrieval and spacing out the retrieval. We know there's specific questions that parents can ask, activities at home. Yes, you're going to be doing things differently the older your child gets, but the same learning, the same way we learn is going to be there.
Yeah, brilliant. Before I ask you your final questions, I just forgot to say the secret word for the code. So I just posted it on the chat. So the word is curupira. It's a word from Brazil. So just send me an email, flavia@seneca.io. Just type the word and I'll make sure to send the code straight away, or at least on the same day. Sorry, I forgot to say that earlier. If you know somebody who was here and just left before I said the word, just please share with them. Okay, so final question is about the desirable difficulties or desiring difficulties. So what's too easy or too hard? Isn't that different for each kid? And then what's the best way to deal with that if you have a class with 40 different students, to make sure that all of them are on that sweet spot of difficulty?
As teachers, well, let me go back. So I taught for 26 years in the classroom, and I had everybody in my class. I was in a small district and the only history teacher in my grade level. So I had everybody, whether they had special education classes, whether they had gifted classes, hearing impaired, physically I had everybody. And I think as a teacher, you get to know your students, and there's a way to be scaffolding. And again, one of the major points is metacognition. I have many, many types of activities available that would help the students understand where they need work. So I think so much is, we are professionals, we know our students. I think one of the best things is having many strategies in your back pocket. So you will know, you will have tools to help your children.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was it. It's already a bit later than should be. So I want to thank everybody, all of the speakers, all of the 7 short talks. Sorry we had to rush a little bit, but I'm glad that everybody could make it, because all of your talks were brilliant. And massive thank you for Patrice as well for her keynote speak, because that was really, really great. And again, sorry for the late word, but it's in the chat. Kurupira, just send that to me, you get a discount. And please make sure to share your thoughts and your questions if we didn't get to ask your question on Twitter. On that blog that Rob shared, that we're going to share again, you have the handles of all the speakers who are on Twitter. Please contact them. I'm sure they will be very happy to hear from you on Twitter. And thank you all very much for joining us tonight, or this evening, or this morning, depending on where you live. And I hope you have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.